In this video, I want to show you how to deploy Checkpoint Firewall using VMware Workstation environment, starting from going to the Checkpoint website, creating our account, downloading the free trial image, and deploying it on VMware environment, and finally how to manage this firewall using the Web GUI and also the Smart Console application for Windows. Let's see how we can do it. I want to start off from the Checkpoint website. You can simply go to the website and go to the user center. In the user center, you can simply create a free account using the sign up now button. I already created an account, so I'm going to go ahead and log in for the first time. Now from this screen, I want to go to try our products on the top menu. We have two options here for either the early availability programs like the beta application and also the normal product evaluation for the current version. So I want to go ahead and select the product evaluation. It might ask you to create an account again. So let's go ahead and create this account. This is separate from the other account we already created. So just fill up this information. And this way you will get a message, this UC account was created. So now we have an account so we can try an evaluation version of the product. So now we can go back again to the product evaluation. Now we have multiple versions are showing. First one is called Threat Prevention Evaluation. This is like IPS and other security features that complement the normal firewalling function. You check the list. This is including things like anti-bot, anti-spam, antivirus, IPS, application control. So this is a supplement if you already have a device and you want to try these features. But the one we need to do is the one called all-in-one evaluation, because this will give us the full list of the firewall and other features as well. And this will allow us to try the product with all the features for 30 days. So I want to go ahead and choose all-in-one evaluation, and then I'm going to click next. This will select the account we just created in the previous step. We may optionally add the IP address of the device, but we will add that later in the license part. We can keep that empty for now. We can choose the purpose of evaluation. I want to try this software blade or feature. Now I can click get evaluation. In a few seconds, you will get this message that the free evaluation was created, and it gives us some information like the SKU number or the certificate key number. So now the first step we need to do is to go in the product center again. This will show us all the different components in the system. They are also referred to in the Checkpoint world as blades. So every different feature in the firewall is considered a blade. We can see in here we have one for IPsec VPN, so we can create site-to-site VPN, IPS for intrusion prevention, antivirus, and so on. Everything is showing up in a different blade. So now what we need to do is to click the license part. The license portion will activate our license using that certificate key we just generated in the previous step so that we can deploy the device and use the license. Now it comes to the software selection. I can tell you that the R70 is a very old version by itself, so you most likely will never need to choose that second option. So just use the newer version R70 and above, and the version we will be using in this case is called 80.10, so it's much higher than this anyway. Now for the IP address portion, this is required in this step because we have to define the IP address that is dedicated for the management for the device. So if this device is going to be facing the internet, we can put the public IP address. In this case, I'm not going to have this device exposed to the internet, so I'm just going to choose an IP address from my local network. So I'm going to open my CMD and I'm going to do ipconfig/all. This will show me all the IP addresses of my interfaces. So if I go up to my Ethernet, this is my local network. I see here I'm using the network 172.20.0.0/24. So I'm going to choose an IP address from that network manually so that it can be assigned to the device and will be licensed to be managed through this IP address. So let's copy this IP address and just choose maybe 172.20.0.200. This will be my static IP address for the firewall. For the hardware brand name, we are not really using a hardware server, we are using VMware environment, so I'm just going to choose other hardware brand name. And finally, I'm going to click license. And now it says license were generated successfully. So now we have a license file that we can download. In this file, it's called cplicense.lic. This file we're going to use to activate the device. So now that we took care of the license portion, we can now go ahead to this page, which says download page. This download page will offer us an ISO file, which is a package application for this software, and we can use this file to deploy it using VMware Workstation. I already downloaded this file. So just like you deploy any virtual machine in VMware Workstation, we're gonna go ahead, click and new virtual machine. We're gonna go through the process. First, we need to define the ISO image we just downloaded from the website. And then I'm gonna click next. In this case, the VMware is not really aware what operating system is being deployed in here. It can detect it's some sort of Linux, which is true, but it detects it as Ubuntu. This doesn't really make any difference in our case. We can leave it as Ubuntu, and then we're just gonna change the name to something more meaningful so that it doesn't say Ubuntu. And we can click next. Now the hard disk is gonna be combined with the operating system and the logs. You can make it bigger if you expect a lot of traffic and a lot of logs, but for our lab 20 gig should be fair enough. I can just save it as a single file because this improved the performance. And finally, before we click finish, we need to modify these specs a little bit. First, for the memory and the processor, we need to upgrade this because the checkpoint requires a little bit more beef or more computing resources so that it would work properly. So I want to choose at least 8 gigs of RAM, and for the CPU I want to choose 4 cores. If you choose less resources than this, you might get an issue connecting with the management or getting all the features to work properly, because the checkpoint is not like the Fortigate. It actually allows you to try everything the same way you would do on a production device, which is great for our case. For the final part, the network adapter. And I want to explain the difference between the network connections in the VMware world really quick, because I had people before ask me, how does this really work? As I'm using right now Windows 10 to host this virtual machine environment, so my Windows 10 is called the host computer. And any operating system I virtualize in here using the VMware environment, it's called a guest computer or a guest operating system. In this case, the three ways the guest operating system can interact with the outside world or with my Windows 10 host is through three different kind of connection. The first one is called bridge, and bridge allows you to connect directly in the network. That means all the communication in this virtual machine will be isolated from the Windows 10. It will be its own entity, and the interface will get its own IP address. So right now I have my DHCP server running on my Fortigate firewall in my network. It's my gateway, and it gave me this IP address 172.20.0.20. In this case, if I put it on bridge, my firewall will have an interface IP from this same subnet. It's my LAN subnet. It will act as if it's completely separate computer, and the Fortigate will treat this Windows 10 PC and the virtual machine that lives inside the same Windows 10 as if they were completely separate computers. So this is the best option if you want to get the full functionality of a virtual machine. In the same time, there are two other interface types that have their own use cases. The first one is called NAT, and in this case, the NAT has a software switch associated with it. It's called VMNet8. You go down all the way, you will see something called VMNet8, which is a virtual adapter or a virtual switch, is run by the VMware software. You will see here that this will be a randomized subnet. So in your computer, it will look different than this. In my case, it came out to 192.168.17.0/24, and the VMware is having the gateway IP.1. In your case, maybe it will be 192.168.40.200.170. It will be randomizing every time you install this software. But what the NAT does, this interface, if it's set up to NAT, it will get an IP address from this subnet, not from the 172.20. So maybe it will get 192.168.17.4. And whenever it tries to communicate with my Windows 10 host, it will communicate normally. But if it tries to communicate with the outside, maybe it tries to ping the internet or tries to communicate with an external network outside my Windows 10 host, it will be NATed to my own Windows 10 host IP, 172.20.0.20. So as long as the communication in the NAT interface is happening inside the Windows 10 host, there is no NAT is going on. But if I try to communicate with anything outside my host, VMware will do port forwarding and NAT to send this traffic outside using my Windows 10 host PC, and when it comes back, it will redirect it back to the virtual machine. Now, the final option we have is called host only, and this is a very special network that is designed to isolate communication outside of your Windows 10 or your host computer. So basically, this is referred to in here as VMnet 1. And this is also going to be a randomized subnet. So yours is not going to be 159, but in my case, it's 192.168.159.0/24. In this case, if I deploy anything in the subnet that is called VMnet1 or host only network, this machine will be able to communicate with both my Windows 10 host and also any other virtual machines in the host only network. So it can communicate with anything in this subnet and also my 172.20.0.20. But if you try to communicate with Google, with any website, you will not be able to get to it because it's isolated. So the difference in this case, this host only can communicate only with itself or with other virtual machines in the same host only network or with my Windows 10 host machine. The NAT will communicate with anything, but as long as it leaves your Windows 10, it will be NATed or source NATed to the IP address of the Windows 10, and the bridge, it will be completely isolated from everything. It will be its own entity. So in this case, this firewall will deploy 3 different interfaces so that we can try different things. I want to choose this main interface to be a bridge. This way it will get its own IP address. Actually, I already defined it in the license file to use 172.20.0.200. So this will be my bridge interface. And then I'm going to create a second interface. This second interface will be my internet connection. So in this case, I want to choose this network adapter to be in the NAT so that it can get outside with no issue. And the third subnet I'm going to create is going to be a subnet inside my host only network. This way I'm going to try to route traffic from internal virtual machines in VMware through this checkpoint firewall without having to traverse anything else. So this is going to be the first time I try to do it this way, but in this case I'm just doing different kind of setup, and that's why I needed to explain the difference between the network adapter types in VMware environment. Now let's hit close for now. Now we are ready to finish our setup and just launch our machine for the first time. Now this has opened the install software for the checkpoint. I just want to change the option to install Gaia. This is the name of the software. But in a few seconds, this will start getting interactive messages so that we can enter some information that are required during the installation. So let's go inside the virtual machine. Let's go ahead and click OK for proceeding. We'll choose English as my language. And this is the breakdown for the hard disk, how it will be partitioned. For our 20 gig hard disk, it's showing that it's taken 5% for the swap, which is like a virtual memory. And the root will be the operating system. The Gaia software, this is taking 36%, and then 15% for logs. This is obviously very small if you are running production environment, but this is for our lab, so we choose a smaller hard disk size. And finally, there is 42% that are dedicated for backing up and upgrades, which is good for disaster recovery and backing up your firewall. So I'm gonna go ahead and agree to this specific partitioning system. For next, we're gonna choose our password for the admin account. This is needed so we can log into the firewall the first time. And we're gonna click OK. Now this is the management board selection menu. As I see here, my 3 interfaces are shown up. Ethernet 0, that was my bridge interface or my management interface. Ethernet 1 is going to be my internet connection, and Ethernet 2 will present my private connection or my local network. So I'm going to define Ethernet 0 as the management interface. Now I have to define the IP address manually, as we already used this to create the license. I have to choose the same IP address. This is a /24, so the subnet mask is correct. I just need to change my default gateway to my Fortigate IP address. For the default gateway, it's 172.20.0.1. If you are not sure, you can come back to your CMD, and where you have the Ethernet adapter, you can see in here as well the default gateway is 172.20.0.1. And then we're gonna click OK. Now everything is ready for install. We're just gonna go ahead and click OK. And this will start pushing these configuration to the device and mounting, formatting the disk, doing all that kind of fun stuff. And then in a few minutes, we will be back. Now it says the installation is complete, and it just asked me to do one more reboot so that everything will be ready for use. So I'm gonna go ahead and click reboot. So I wanna go back to the browser, use the HTTPS protocol, and then put the IP address of the firewall 172.20.0.200. So now we can log in for the first time. And this way we will get the first time configuration prompt. This is showing me VMware as my platform. Let's go ahead and click next. Now we get a chance to restore from a snapshot or from a USB device, but this is a fresh install, so we're just gonna choose the first option and click next. Now this is Ethernet 0. This is my first interface or my management interface, which I'm using right now. This is all correct, but we also now have a chance to add IPv6 if we plan to use IPv6. Now let's click next. Now for the second interface, like I said, this will connect to the internet. So this is showing me the setup right now for Ethernet 1. But the problem is when we try to choose IPv4, I don't see DHCP client, or I don't see the option to grab an IP address from a DHCP server outside. So I want to leave this to off for now, and I want to do it later after we log in so I can show you how to use the DHCP client to get the IP address. Now I want to click next. Now I just changed the host name to something meaningful. And now for the DNS server, if you have a DNS server running in your network, you can define that, or you can just define one of the online ones like 8.8.8.8. This is Google public DNS. And now I'm going to click next. Now I see this time is correct, so I'm going to go ahead next. Now it's going to ask me to choose between a single server or a multi-server setup. We're just running this one installation, so we're going to keep using the security gateway and click next. This will activate the security gateway and security management on the device. You can also choose clustering to make a cluster, but I will have a separate video on clustering, so we can initially run it as a standalone. And finally, let's go ahead and click next. Now with the initial installation with the checkpoint, you have some nice feature like defining a new administrator right away. Instead of using the admin account, you can use a new admin name. You can also define things like trusted host. So this is a security feature that allows you to log into the firewall only from a specific known whitelisted IPs. So in case you want to define a static range to be able to access the firewall, this is called trusted host. You can define it in here. I can choose my specific PC. It already read the IP address. I can define a network with a subnet mask or a range. Right now, since I'm running this from my local network, I'm not worried about the trusted host because this device is not exposed to the internet directly. So I'm gonna go ahead and click next. Now this is just confirming what will be installed. I want to opt out from sending any information to the manufacturer, and I want to click next. This will finish the installation with the firewall, and it will also reboot the firewall one more time in the end. And then the firewall will be completely ready to use. Now the device has rebooted one more time, so let me log in now using my admin credential. Now this is the main screen for managing the firewall. This is the Checkpoint main GUI. We can see in here information about the kernel, the edition for the software and the build number, the uptime and the platform. I also see in here the network configuration. I see my 3 interfaces as long as the loopback interface. We see some nice charts, although a little bit basic for throughput and bandwidth of the device. Now we also see the blades in here, which are the different features in the firewall. Now the way we activate our license so we can get everything to work normally, we need to go under maintenance section, license status. Right now the firewall and the logging system are showing just the 15-day. This is just the basic license that come with any device, just 15-day free trial. Let's go back to our network interfaces. And as you see here, the Ethernet one was set up in the NAT network mode in VMware, but right now it's not configured yet. Let's do edit on this interface and let's enable it. Now we finally see here, obtain IPv4 address automatically. So this is the DHCP option that I could not find in the initial setup. I want to choose this option and let's hit OK. Once I refresh, I'm getting 192.168.17.132. We check back on the ipconfig VMnet 8 that was considered for the NAT 192.168.17.0/24. So this is how we got this IP address using the VMware. Now we can do the same for our Ethernet 2. This is our host only. So if we go and edit this interface and enable it, maybe we can put a comment. This is host only. And we can change it also to DHCP client. Now once I refresh, I got an IP address from the VMnet 1 192.168.159.130. Now we have all our interfaces ready. I want to go back to the overview and I want to show you the Smart Console. This is a management software that comes installed with the device. So I can see in here that this will download the exe file. So you can just install this exe like any normal application and then you can run it. This will say Smart Console. You can put the IP address of the device. This is admin and we can put the password. Now once we trust the firewall for the first time, now this has loaded our Smart Console main GUI. So if we check our gateways, we see in here our firewall, our version, our hardware type. We can see different metrics like the CPU and memory usage. We can also send or push updates to the firewall, run script. We can do all kind of things in this one in all application. So now as you see the license status, it says not activated. To be able to activate this, we can open our menu from the top and let's go to manage license and packages. And from here, we can open our menu again, license and contract, add license from file. So now I define the LIC file that I downloaded from the user center in the Checkpoint website. This said that the tool license has been pushed and the firewall needs to be rebooted so that all these information will update. So now we finish pushing the information to the device. I can now reboot the device simply by running a script. You see in here, there is a menu called script. You can run a one-time script. And I just want to say reboot. And this will just reboot the firewall. We check our VMware Workstation. We can see the device is right now rebooting. And now I went back to the software and licensing contract and I did attach my new updated license to the firewall. Now it showed me that I have to reboot the device again. So let's go back and close this one. Now let's do one more time. One-time script reboot. Now it has been running. Now if I go back and log into the firewall, now I finally see activation status activated. All the items are showing to June 29. That's how we deploy Checkpoint Firewall on VMware environment and use Smart Console for management. Thank you for watching.